Insight recaps. Here today I will show you a horror comedy movie named The Babysitter. Movie starts with a 12-year-old boy named Col. Col is apparently a very coward child. He has only one friend named Melanie. Because of being this coward, everybody bullied him. The people that bullied him outside school included Jeremy and his minions. Jeremy is also Col's neighbor. They are still bullying him when Col's babysitter B, like usual, comes to rescue him and scares them away. Col and B has a really good friendship, and Col also has a crush on B. B drops Col home and leaves. In the next scene we see Col's father teaching him to drive. But Col couldn't drive because of his fear. His father says he will learn driving with time. Next day, in the school bus, he tells Melanie his parents are going to spend a night at the hotel. Here Melanie tells Col that babysitters often call their boyfriends after putting the baby to sleep. B must do the same. Col decides that at night he will stay awake to see what B does. Time passes and night comes. Col's parents go to the hotel, leaving Col alone with B. After his parents leave, Col and B enjoys a lot. After which B says, it's too late, they should sleep now. As B goes to get the shots, Col pours the shot into the flower pot and pretends to have taken the shot in front of B. B drinks her shots. Col comes to his room saying he wants to sleep, and FaceTimes with Melanie to tell her everything. That how he will spy on B and her boyfriend. He hears B coming and lays on the bed pretending to sleep. B comes into his room and asks if he is feeling sleepy. Col yawns and portrays himself sleepy. Then he thanks B that she is friends with a weird kid like him. B says to Col that she likes him being weird. Then B leaves saying good night to Col. Here, we can guess that B isn't a bad person by heart. As B leaves, Col starts to message Melanie. After some time, Col hears the doorbell. And he also hears a few people entering the house. Col crawls from the room to the staircase and secretly keeps an eye on them. There, B's friends Max, Allison, John, Sonia, and Samuel are sitting in a circle playing Truth and Dare. Col sees that as the bottle is spins for Truth and Dare, it stops on B and she chooses Dare. Max gives her the dare to kiss everybody in the room. B kisses everybody one by one and at last Samuel's turn comes. Samuel is hesitating when B asks him to relax. When he relaxes, B kisses him. After kissing him, B suddenly inserts 2 knives in Samuel's head. And all the friend collects the blood coming out of Samuel in a sort of cup. With this scene, we can interpret they are performing a satanic ritual. And Samuel was their sacrifice for the ritual. Col secretly seeing all this gets into a shock. Max clears Samuel's body and B takes out a very old book, which, according to B, is Devil's Bible. Upon John's question, she tells that while reciting the verse from the book, if they pour blood on it their wishes will come true. She closes the book and says now they have to go to Col to get the blood, because in order to complete the ritual they need an innocent child's blood. Col gets scared and runs to his room and calls the police. Col tells them that a murder was committed in his living room, and they are now coming into his room. Police officer takes all the information and asks Col to hide. Col, without listening to them, takes out a pocket knife from his drawer to keep himself safe. Then he looks outside the window to analyze the distance. Just then he hears B and his friends coming upstairs. Col lays on the bed and pretends to be sleeping. All of them comes to his room and B tells them he has given him a drug, due to which he will not wake up. Meaning the shots B gave to Col were drugged. They take out his blood through a syringe. Col is really scared of the needle, but here very difficultly, he hides his fear. After taking the blood they leave, but when B is about to step out of the room, she finds the room's window open and she gets suspicious. When Col hears the door shut, he gets up and starts to make a rope with the bed sheets, and throws it outside the window. He is getting ready to jump but he falls unconscious due to blood loss. B is standing behind him watching everything. When Col regains consciousness, he sees all of B's friends standing in front of him, and he is tied to a chair. B is asking Col why didn't he take the shots. During the conversation Col takes out the pocket knife and starts cutting the rope. B asks him what else has he seen. Col doesn't give any relevant answer and counter questions her. Allison tells him that there is mirror behind in which they can see him cutting the ropes. He keeps on cutting the ropes. Col pretends he doesn't know anything. And he was running because they took his blood. B believes him and says they took his blood for a science project. Col says if she had asked him for the blood he would have given it to her himself. B says to him that she didn't want to scare him. B orders Sonia to untie Col. Sonia moves forward to untie Col when police arrives. Upon hearing Col's voice, the cops barge in, breaking the doors. And keep their guns pointed at these people. Max throws a rod towards the police officer. During this, Allison gets shot. And B slits the throat of the other officer. Police officer's walkie-talkie falls there. In that, the backup police officers who ask about the situation in codes. B knows that Col wants to be a police officer, that's why he knows the codes. B asks the code from Col, but he tells her the wrong code. B says she knows Col is lying. She forces him to tell the codes, so he gives up and tells her the code. Max speaks the code and the police officers are relaxed. And all the friends are also relaxed. Just then, Allison, who had been shot, starts whining. Due to which everybody is attracted to her. Allison is whining and Col uses this distraction to cut his ropes and starts running. Seeing him running, John runs after him. Col runs upstairs to his room and John is following him. When Col turns around and pushes John down the stairs, he is slipped by Col's toy car and falls down, and Col's trophy is passed through his neck. B asks them to catch Col and Max goes after him. Col quickly goes to his room and locks the door. Max keeps on knocking the door. Col is going through the sheet ropes when Max comes to the window. When Max tries to pull the rope towards himself, Col leaves the rope and falls down. Max leaves the ropes, gets out of the house to chase Col. Col hides under the car in the garage before Max could come. Max is unable to find Col, so he goes to the neighborhood to search for him. To keep himself safe, Col takes blanket, bug spray, lighter, rocket and drill from the garage. He takes these things to the crawl space. There are plenty spiders in the crawl space. Col, getting rid of them, hides, and takes a blanket on himself. Sonia comes there and sees the drills of the crawl space open and guesses Col might be in it. Sonia goes into the crawl space with a torch and starts to search for Col. A spider is seen crawling on the blanket under which Col is hiding. Sonia shows affection to the spider and turns around to get out. Col flicks the spider, due to which it dies in the trap. Upon hearing the snap of the trap, Sonia looks at Col and starts to getting close to him with a knife. Col lights up the rocket and sends in towards Sonia. But rocket gets stuck in the soil, missing Sonia. When Col gets out the blanket, knife falls from Sonia's hand. And her hands get stuck into the trap. Col quickly gets out of the crawl space and drills it back. Soya comes to the drill and Col sprays the bug spray on her. The rocket inside catches fire and blast occurs, due to which Col falls back. Whereas, crawl space is completely burnt, Col is lying there. When he sees Max coming towards him, clapping. Max appreciates him and gives him a head start. Col hits him with the bug spray and starts running from there. Col remembers the technique B told him. He stops while running and Max falls down, hitting him. And then Col hits him. Max gets angry and picks up Col with his neck. Meanwhile, they hear eggs. Max takes Col to the house's porch. He encourages Col to take revenge from Jeremy, who is throwing eggs on his house. Col, determined, goes to Jeremy, says some dialogues and tries to hit him. But falls himself. Col tells Jeremy that the man standing near his house is trying to kill him. Col asks him for help. Jeremy shows sympathy and tells him to run with him on the count of 3. On the count of 3, Jeremy smashes an egg on Col and leaves, making fun of him. Max comes to him, gets him up and encourages him to be more confident. Col asks him, will he let him go now? Max replies, he has a will to kill people, so he won't let him go. Col hits him and runs on the tree house and cuts the stairs. Max circles the tree and makes fun of Col. Ropes are tied on the either side of the tree. Col, while searching for a way out, looks at the rope and tries to jump on it. Whereas, through the other rope Max climbs in front of him. Max cleans the egg from Col's face but gets it on his own hands. He moves forwards and holds Col by his neck. Just then the wood breaks below them. Max tries to hold something. But because of the eggs he slips and the ropes gets tangled in his neck and he dies. Col falls down and is looking at Max's hanged body when B fires at him with a gun. He runs pretty scared and gets into Melanie's house. He tells Melanie everything. Melanie believes him. Meanwhile, B comes there searching for Col. Col apologizes to Melanie that he got her into this trouble as well. He asks Melanie to call the police and tell the code. He says all this and gets out of the house. And calls B out loud. He doesn't get a response. So, he goes back to his house and is shocked to see no spot of any activity. And the house is fully clear. He comes to the living room and sees Allison on the chair, apparently dead. Col checks her but doesn't get any reaction, so he moves towards the Devil's Bible in the kitchen. Col is looking at the book when Allison attacks him. And starts to hit him. Col touches her gun wound so she falls back. She says bad stuff to Col. And once again attacks him with the knives. Col tries to scare her with a stove lighter. Just then, B shoots Allison and her head is blasted. Col cleverly picks up the Devil's Bible and threatens B that he will burn it. Col angrily asks her why were they doing all this. B tells him that by sacrificing and pouring the innocent's blood on the book while reciting the verse will fulfill every wish. She also tells him she was just like Col as a kid, so she made a deal with the devil to become confident. Col tells her that he heard their conversation and he knows B was only using him for herself. He asks her if he is the first kid. B tells him that she changes the town every time and babysits kids like Col. And then takes their blood. B asks him to reconcile with him and tell everybody the others attacks them. Col hesitates. It seems like he would give B the book but he lights it up and throws it. B gets to the book and tries to blow the fire off. Seeing her distracted, Col runs outside. And gets Melanie's father's car. Col crashes that car in his house and B is smashed under the car. Col gets out of the car and gets to injured B. Col confesses his feelings for her and they share an emotional moment. B dies and Col comes out leaving her there. Until then police and Col's parents arrive. They come to Col and asks him what happened. Col without answering their questions says he doesn't need a babysitter anymore. In all the scenario, Col somewhat overcomes all of his fears. For example, fear of syringe, fear of spiders, etc. In the post-credit scenes, B is shown attacking a police officer. With which we can interpret that B did not die. Allison was shot but she didn't die, which concludes these people are not easy to kill.